Morning. Thanks so much for joining us here on Up with KREM. I'm Channing Curtis.
And I'm Tim Pham. We haven't said happy Friday Eve to you yet.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, how have we forgotten?
We really have. We're having a day.
We are having a day, but hey, we are one day closer to the weekend, so that's something to look forward to. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick tracking today's forecast, but also the weekend ahead. So Thomas, is it just going to be straight out cold for the rest of the week?
Yeah, and I think we're having a week.
Yes.
A week of cold weather. And yeah, sometimes that makes us forget that it's Friday Eve out there. A couple differences this morning compared to yesterday. It's less windy, but it's a little bit more cloudy. That's the only differences. Otherwise, temperature-wise, it's about the same out there, right at 20 or just now 21 degrees here in Spokane after we hit a morning low of 18. Still a bit of fresh snow on top of some of those roofs and some of the grassy areas and sidewalks, but most of it has been shoveled or plowed from this past Monday's snowstorm that we had. Still 19 in Deer Park, but that is up another 6 degrees this hour compared to a low of 8 in Deer Park early on this morning. The warm spot is Pullman at 31 degrees, but the wind chill, well, it's in effect for some regions, not everyone. Here in Spokane, our wind chill is now 15 thanks to just a 5-mile-per-hour wind, but a lot of these values are identical to the current temperature because those winds are a lot more calm. By the way, Winthrop, -2 is what it feels like right now. That morning low cloud cover does burn off pretty quickly. We should be in for a partly sunny or mostly sunny day with those temperatures topping out just above the freezing mark, but that's still about 10 degrees below average for now.
Well, last night we saw a big update in the race for Spokane County Commissioner District 5. Newcomer candidate Maggie Yates conceded to incumbent Al French.
So for the last 2 days, French was leading Yates by a small margin. However, last night, another round of ballots dropped, extending French's lead. He's now leading Yates 51% to 49%, with just over 1,000 votes separating them.
So also last night, Republican candidate Tiffany Smiley conceded to the U.S. Senate race to incumbent Senator Patty Murray. At last count, Murray held more than 56% of the vote, while Smiley had about 43%. Tuesday night, both CBS and the AP called the race for Murray. This was one of the most anticipated and highly watched races in the election. Now Murray will begin her 6th term in the U.S. Senate.
And the race for Washington Secretary of State remains undecided this morning. Incumbent Steve Hobbs maintains a lead over nonpartisan candidate Julie Anderson. About 3% of the ballots actually went to write-in candidates in this race.
Democrats had a strong night. We still have a possibility of keeping the House, but it's going to be close.
Now taking a look at the national races this morning, we still don't know which party will have control of Congress.
Yeah, President Biden praised the strong showing for the Democratic Party. CBS News projects that the House, though, will lean Republican right now, with votes in multiple tight races still being tallied. House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy has already officially launched his bid for Speaker.
That we are going to take the House back.
President Biden called McCarthy after the election. According to the White House, Biden and Vice President Harris are expected to address the midterms again later today at a planned Democratic National Committee event in Washington, D.C.
Now, one race that could decide control of the Senate won't actually be decided until next month. In Georgia, neither Senate candidate hit 50% of the vote, sending the race to a December 6th runoff. The race saw Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock facing off against Republican candidate and former football star Herschel Walker. This is the second time in a row that the race for this seat has gone to a runoff.
This morning across Arizona, the counting of hundreds of thousands of outstanding mail-in ballots continues. In the closely watched Senate race, incumbent Mark Kelly has a slight edge over his Republican challenger and Trump-supported candidate Blake Masters.
Doesn't look like we're going to have the final results for a little while. It's okay. And that's okay.
Now north in Nevada, another Senate race hangs on in an ongoing ballot count. Democratic incumbent Catherine Cortez Masto and her GOP rival Adam Laxalt are separated by just about 20,000 votes, with Laxalt ahead. With more than 27,000 mail-in ballots still needing to be counted over the next several days, both candidates are expressing confidence but are also urging patience.
We know this will take time, and we won't have more election results for several days.
We have a lot of our votes coming in all across the state yet to be tabulated.
So in the hours following the closure of the polls, poll workers started counting votes and sources started calling races. But for some races, that happened just minutes after the polls closed. So why did that happen? Well, take a look at this tweet from the Associated Press. Less than 2 minutes after the polls closed in Idaho, the Associated Press said Governor Brad Little won his re-election, and their call ended up being right. So how can they do that? Let's break it down here for you. The AP has compiled election night votes since 1848, so they've been doing this for quite some time. Across all 50 states, AP has 4,000 reporters to gather voting numbers for more than 7,000 races. Those numbers are double-checked with softwares, and they also get the most accurate information as possible. So they also use AP VoteCast, that is research from voter surveys and other data. So with that, how do they actually go about deciding a winner? Well, first, they will not make a call before the polls close. They also only declare a winner when they know there's no way the loser can catch up. For this, the AP takes history into account. They keep tabs on how a party or a candidate has done in the past. For example, for almost 30 years, Idaho has had a Republican governor. So that meant they could really call that race early. It's all focused on accuracy, though. During the 2020 presidential election, the AP was 99.9% accurate in calling races. They were correct in every state for the president and congressional races. They waited until 4 days after the election to declare President Biden as the winner of the 2020 presidential election.
Now, while votes are still being counted in some critical races, marijuana ballot initiatives did get decisive answers. Maryland and Missouri are the latest two states to vote in favor of legalizing recreational use for people over 21 years old, joining 19 states and the District of Columbia. Cannabis trade group MJ Biz is estimating that legal medical and recreational marijuana sales totaled over $20 billion last year. 3 other states, Arkansas, North Dakota, and South Dakota, rejected similar initiatives on Tuesday.